Have you ever noticed how heavy it feels to carry the weight of everyone else's expectations while silently suffocating under your own? Most of your suffering is not caused by the problems you face. It is caused by the incredible amount of energy it takes to pretend you are not hurting. If you have ever felt emotionally exhausted, lonely in a crowded room, or tired of always being the strong one, this is for you. There is a strange kind of loneliness that comes from being the person everyone relies on. You are the problem solver, the listener, the one who smiles and nods, who absorbs the anxieties of others while neatly burying your own. You have taught the world that you do not break. You have convinced the people around you that you can handle anything. But here is the truth. It is exhausting. Deeply, silently, overwhelmingly exhausting. You may be surrounded by people. You may be in constant contact with friends, family, and loved ones. But physical proximity does not equal emotional connection. When you are constantly performing strength, the people around you are not connecting with you. They are connecting with an illusion. They love the version of you that requires nothing from them. Buddhist wisdom teaches that much of our suffering comes from clinging to a rigid identity. We attach ourselves to a label: the caretaker, the rock, the unbroken survivor. And we believe that if we drop this label, we will lose our worth. We think that if we stop being strong, people will leave. We confuse being useful with being loved. Imagine a thick suit of iron armor. Years ago, perhaps during a difficult season of your life, you put this armor on. It protected you. It kept you safe when the world felt unpredictable and harsh. But the war ended. The danger passed. Yet, you never took the armor off. Now, it is heavy. It limits your movement. You cannot feel the warmth of the sun, and no one can truly feel the warmth of your heart. The very thing that once saved you is now keeping you isolated. Think about your own life. Think about the last time you were hurting but answered, "I am fine." Think about how much energy it takes to hold back the tide of your own exhaustion just to make sure someone else feels comfortable. Ask yourself, what are you afraid will happen if you finally say, "I cannot do this today"? What are you terrified they will see if you let the armor slip? You do not have to hold the world together. The world was spinning long before you were born, and it will spin long after. Pause. Breathe. Notice the tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your chest. Just observe it. You do not have to fix it right now. Just silently acknowledge how much effort it takes to be this strong. Let the feeling rise without making it your identity. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to be fragile. You are allowed to let the armor fall just for a moment, just for yourself. Because peace is not something you achieve by building higher walls. It is something you make space for when you finally stop defending a fortress that is empty inside. But realizing you are exhausted is only the beginning. The real question is why we try to keep everyone so physically close while keeping our true selves so deeply hidden. And this is where the next truth begins. What if the loneliest place in the world is not an empty room, but a crowded table where no one knows who you really are? We often confuse proximity with connection. We believe that if we are always there for people, answering their calls, showing up to their events, sitting in the same room, we are deeply connected to them. We measure our belonging by how often we are physically present. We exhaust ourselves trying to stay in the center of everyone's world, silently fearing that if we take a step back, we will be forgotten. But physical closeness means very little if your true self is miles away. In Buddhist thought, there is a profound distinction between the surface of things and their true nature. We often cling to the surface. We cling to the appearance of a relationship. We maintain the outer form of a friendship, a family bond, or a partnership. but we empty it of its spirit by hiding our true condition. We think that if we just keep people close enough, if we just stay in the room, the internal ache of loneliness will eventually fade. But loneliness does not come from a lack of people. It comes from a lack of truth. Imagine two great trees standing side by side in a quiet forest. Their branches overlap. Their leaves brush against one another in the wind. To anyone walking by, they appear completely entwined, growing together in perfect harmony. But underground, buried deep beneath the soil where no one ever looks, their roots are entirely separated by a cold, solid wall of stone. They share the same rain, they share the same sunlight, but they cannot truly anchor each other. They share the same space, but they are entirely alone in their foundation. This is what it feels like to always be the strong one. You share the same spaces with the people you care about. You help them through their storms. You listen to their deepest fears. But because you refuse to show them your own cracks, your own exhaustion, you are living behind that wall of stone. You confuse being needed with being known. They know your face, they know your reliability, but they do not know your heart. They know exactly what you do for them, but they know absolutely nothing about what you need from them. Ask yourself, who in your life knows everything about how capable you are, but nothing about how tired you feel? Think about the people you speak to every single day. If you were to suddenly stop being the one who holds it all together, if you were to sit down and simply say, "I am lost right now," would they know how to sit in the dark with you? Or have you trained them to only love your light? Look at the relationships where you feel the most drained. Notice how much energy you spend maintaining the surface. Do not judge yourself for it. Just see it for what it is. Stop trying to bridge the gap with more time, more favors, and more physical presence. Proximity will never cure the ache of being unseen. Let that sink in. You do not need to be physically closer to people to find belonging. You need to be more honest with them. But speaking that honesty feels terrifying, because the moment you drop the act, you are forced to confront the character you have played for so long. And this brings us to the heaviest weight of all. 3. The heavy burden of unbreakable identity. Here is the truth few people want to face. The label you wear with the most pride is often the one that causes you the deepest pain. You have been praised for your resilience. You are so strong, they say. I do not know how you do it. When you first heard these words, they felt like a compliment. They felt like a badge of honor. It felt good to be the reliable one, the steady one, the person who never crumbles when the world falls apart. But over time, that compliment becomes a cage. You become trapped by the expectation that you will always be okay. You are not allowed to be confused. You are not allowed to be a mess. You are not allowed to need saving. You have built an unbreakable identity, and now you must carry the crushing weight of maintaining it every single day. In Buddhist thought, one of the deepest lessons is the understanding that clinging to a rigid sense of self creates suffering. We suffer because we try to freeze ourselves into one permanent shape. When you decide, "I am the strong one," you deny the natural flowing reality of your own human emotions. You reject your own impermanence. A branch that refuses to bend in the wind will eventually snap under the pressure. By clinging to the identity of the unbroken survivor, you are fighting the natural law of your own humanity. Imagine a massive stone dam built across a raging river. For years, it stands firm. It holds back millions of gallons of heavy, crushing water. People admire the dam. They build their peaceful lives in the valley below, completely trusting the stone to hold. But the dam does not feel their admiration. It only feels the immense, relentless pressure of the water pushing against it day and night. And stone cannot heal. It cannot rest. It can only endure until, one day, the pressure finds a tiny, invisible crack. This is what happens when you try to be the unyielding support system for everyone else. You absorb the stress of your workplace. You quietly carry the burdens of your family. You listen to the anxieties of your friends. You act as the dam, holding the heavy waters back so that everyone else can live comfortably in the valley. But you are not made of stone. You are a living, breathing human being, and the quiet, invisible pressure is slowly cracking you from the inside out. You are suffocating under the very resilience people praise you for. Ask yourself, are you holding on to this strong identity because it brings you peace, or because you fear who you would be without it? Think about your own life. What would happen if you let the water flow naturally? What would happen if you simply looked at the people in the valley and said, I cannot hold this anymore? Pause, breathe. Notice the tightness in your jaw and the heavy armor resting on your shoulders. Observe the desperate need to keep everything perfectly controlled. You do not have to be a monument. You do not have to hold back the ocean for everyone else. Let the feeling of exhaustion rise without judging it. Do your part, then release the outcome. You do not have to be unbreakable to earn your place in this world, but letting go of that rigid identity requires facing something deeply uncomfortable, because beneath the stone, beneath the strength, is a terrifying vulnerability. And this is where the next truth begins. 4. The fear of being truly seen. What if the connection you are most desperate to find is exactly what you are running away from? Here is the strange paradox of the human heart. We deeply crave belonging. We want someone to look at us and understand exactly who we are without us having to say a word. We want to be held. We want to be known. But the moment someone gets too close to the truth of our exhaustion, we panic. We build a wall. We change the subject. We smile and say we are just tired from a long week. We fear that if people see the real, messy, fragile version of us, they will walk away. We believe that we are only valuable as long as we are useful. So, we hide in plain sight. Buddhism reminds us that much of our fear is an illusion created by the ego. The mind tells us a story that our true nature is somehow unacceptable. We become attached to the belief that love must be earned through perfection, strength, or quiet endurance. But this attachment creates a deep inner suffering. When we try to control how others perceive us, we are fighting a battle we can never win. We are living in a constant state of defense. Imagine a grand, beautiful house. You invite your friends, your family, and your colleagues inside. You host them in the brightly lit rooms. You serve them, you listen to them, and you make sure everyone is comfortable. But deep down the hallway, there is a small, dimly lit room. This is where your sadness lives. This is where your quiet fears and your profound exhaustion rest. You have placed a heavy lock on this door. You swallow the key every single morning. You are absolutely terrified that someone might wander down the hall, turn the handle, and see the mess inside. You believe that if they see the dust and the shadows, they will leave the house forever. This is what you are doing in your daily life. You are hosting everyone in the bright rooms of your capability. You are the one who solves the problems at work. You are the one who keeps the family peace. You type out a long, honest message about how overwhelmed you feel, but then you delete it, swallow your pride, and reply, "I am okay." You sit in your car for a long time before wiping your eyes and walking into a room with a bright, convincing smile. You are keeping the door locked, but in doing so, you are locking yourself inside. Ask yourself, who are you really protecting by keeping that door shut? Are you protecting them from your sadness, or are you protecting yourself from the fear that they might not know how to love you in the dark? What are you afraid will happen if someone sees you without your strength? Pause, breathe. Let the fear of rejection rise up in your mind. Observe the thought without following it. See the fear for what it is, a shadow, a passing cloud. You do not have to throw the door wide open for the whole world today. But stop pretending the room does not exist, because you can never feel truly loved if you are never truly seen. The affection you receive for your armor will never warm your skin, but stepping out of that armor and unlocking that door requires a profound and quiet bravery, and this is where the next truth begins. 5. The courage to drop the shield. What if the hardest battle you will ever fight is the one where you finally decide to put down your weapons? Here is the truth few people want to face. The longer you practice being invincible, the harder it becomes to simply be human. We spend our entire lives preparing for impact. We walk into work, into family gatherings, and into our closest relationships, bracing for the exact moment we will be needed to fix a crisis, carry a burden, or endure a disappointment. We convince ourselves that our constant vigilance is an act of love. We believe that by absorbing the shock of life for everyone else, we are keeping them safe. But in the process, we become so used to surviving that we forget how to simply exist. In Buddhist thought, there is a profound practice found in non-resistance. We suffer not just because of the pain we experience, but because of the incredible, exhausting effort we exert trying to block it, control it, or armor ourselves against it. Buddhism reminds us that when we drop our resistance, we do not become weak. We become soft enough to truly feel. We stop fighting reality and begin to accept it. True peace comes when we stop defending a false image of invulnerability. Imagine a tired traveler walking through a quiet, sunlit forest. A violent storm passed through many days ago, but he still carries a heavy iron shield raised high above his. The sky above him is perfectly clear, but he refuses to set the shield down, convinced that another branch might fall at any moment. Because both of his hands are occupied with defense, he cannot drink from the clear river. He cannot feel the warmth of the sun on his face. He cannot embrace a friend who meets him on the path. The shield is no longer protecting him from the storm. It is isolating him from the peace. This is what it looks like when you refuse to let your guard down in your own life. You treat a simple conversation with a loved one like a negotiation you cannot afford to lose. You treat your own sadness like a dangerous weakness you must hide from your friends. You walk into the safety of your own home, still carrying the weight of the day, unable to just sit quietly and let yourself unravel. You are so terrified of falling apart that you never allow yourself to be held together by someone else. You are blocking the very connection you are starving for. Ask yourself, what invisible storms are you still bracing for? Think about your own life. Who is asking to hold your hand while you are too busy holding up your shield? What are you afraid will happen if you let the heavy iron fall to the ground? Pause, breathe, drop your shoulders. Notice how much physical tension you are holding in your body right now. Observe the tight grip you have on your own emotions. You do not have to fix everything today. Let the feeling rise without making it your identity. In this moment, the storm has passed. Stop preparing for a fight that is not happening, because true courage is not the ability to carry the shield forever. It is the quiet wisdom to know when it is finally safe to set it down. But setting it down means you must find a completely new way to relate to the people around you. And this is where the next truth begins. 6. Connection through truth, not distance. What if the distance between you and the people you love cannot be measured in miles, but in the truths you leave unspoken? Here is the truth few people want to face. We try to fix our loneliness by simply trying to be around people more often. We fill our calendars, we reply to every message. We sit in crowded rooms and force ourselves to laugh at jokes we barely hear. We believe that if we just keep showing up, the feeling of isolation will eventually fade away. We try to cure a wound of the soul with mere geography, but geography cannot heal you. Physical closeness without emotional honesty is just a crowded form of hiding. Buddhist wisdom teaches us about the profound power of mindful presence and truthful speech. In Buddhist thought, true communion does not happen because two people occupy the same physical space. It happens when two people inhabit the same truth. When we hide our pain behind a polite smile, we create an invisible wall. We create suffering because we are dividing ourselves in two, the person we are inside and the person we project to the outside world. Imagine two small boats drifting on a vast, quiet ocean at night. They are tied together by a short, thick rope. They bump into each other with every passing wave. They share the exact same patch of dark water, but a heavy, blinding fog surrounds them. The people on board cannot see one another. They can hear the creak of the wood. They can feel the pull of the rope, but they are entirely blind to what is happening on the other deck. They are close, but they are completely alone. This continues until one of them finally strikes a match and lights a lantern. The warm, golden light pierces the dark fog. For the first time, they see each other's faces. They see the weariness in each other's eyes. They see the quiet relief. They are no longer just surviving the night side by side. They are truly together. This is what your relationships look like when you hide your exhaustion. You are tied to your family, your friends, and your colleagues. By the heavy ropes of routine and loyalty, you sit across from a friend at a table, discussing work, the news, or weekend plans. You are physically 3 feet apart, but you are entirely swallowed by the fog. You are smiling, but inside, your boat is taking on water. The fog is your polite silence. The fog is your absolute refusal to say, "I am having a really hard time right now." Ask yourself, how many people are anchored to your life, but completely lost in the fog of your silence? Think about your own life. Are you exhausted because you are doing too much? Or are you exhausted because you are hiding too much? What are you afraid they will do if you finally light the lantern? Pause. Breathe. Notice the fear that rises when you think about telling the truth. Observe the thought without following it. The next time someone asks how you are, do not rush to say you are fine. You do not have to pour out your entire soul, but stop hiding in the fog. Stop trying to force connection with mere presence. Because true belonging is not about sitting in the same room, it is about standing in the same light. But learning to speak that truth softly, without anger or defense, requires a delicate practice. And this is where the next truth begins. 7. The practice of gentle honesty. What if telling the truth about your pain does not have to be an explosion, but just a quiet turning on of the light? Here is the truth few people want to face. When we have hidden our exhaustion for a long time, we begin to fear our own honesty. We believe that if we finally speak up, it will ruin everything. We think our pain is too heavy, too messy, or too complicated for others to hold. So, we stay completely silent until the pressure becomes unbearable. And when we finally do break, it often comes out as frustration, deep resentment, or a sudden, dramatic withdrawal. We swing wildly from total silence to absolute collapse, believing there is no middle ground. Buddhism teaches the profound path of the middle way, which extends to how we practice right speech. Right speech is not just about avoiding lies. It is the mindful practice of speaking what is true, necessary, and helpful, with a calm and gentle heart. It is the ability to observe the reality of your own suffering and speak it without anger, without defense, and without the desperate need to place blame. It is the practice of letting your truth simply exist without apologizing for it. Imagine a vast, enclosed room that has been locked in absolute darkness for many years. When you finally decide to bring light into that space, you do not need to set the walls on fire. You do not need a violent explosion to cast out the dark. You simply strike a single quiet match and light a small candle in the center of the room. The flame does not shout, it does. Not violently push the shadows away. It simply takes up its rightful space, and the darkness naturally, effortlessly softens around it. This is what gentle honesty looks like in your daily life. You do not need to unleash years of suppressed resentment in one overwhelming conversation. You do not need to dramatically cut ties or angrily declare that no one appreciates you. Gentle honesty is much simpler and much braver. It is looking at a friend when they ask for another favor and simply saying, "I do not have the energy to do this right now." It is sitting with your family and quietly admitting, "I am feeling really overwhelmed today." It is not an argument. It is not a negotiation. It is just lighting a candle. You are simply letting the people around you see where you actually are. Ask yourself, why do you believe your truth must be loud, defensive, or dramatic to be valid? Think about your own life. Who are you afraid will be disappointed if you stop offering them your perfect strength and offer them your quiet truth instead? Pause, breathe. The next time you feel the heavy urge to hide your exhaustion behind a familiar smile, choose the smallest truth instead. Stop trying to protect everyone from your humanity. Let the words rise without making them a weapon. Just light the candle and trust that the people who truly love you will not run from the light. Because honesty does not require a storm. It only requires a quiet willingness to be seen exactly as you are. But stepping into that light means you must stop maintaining the grand illusion you have built for everyone else. And this is where the next truth begins. 8. Letting go of who they need you to be. What if the hardest part of letting go is not losing the people around you, but losing the version of yourself you created just to keep them happy? Here is the truth few people want to face. We are terrified of disappointing people. We have spent so long being the rock, the fixer, and the quiet anchor that we have convinced ourselves this is the only way we are allowed to exist. We believe that if we stop playing this role, the people we love will turn away. We twist ourselves into uncomfortable shapes to fit the spaces they need us to fill. We manage their emotions. We soften our words. We carry their burdens, completely forgetting that we have our own heavy journey to walk. Buddhism reminds us that one of the greatest sources of suffering is our attachment to who we think we are supposed to be. We cling to an image. We cling to a performance. But true freedom, true non-attachment, means dropping the desperate need to control how other people experience us. You cannot dictate someone else's journey, and you cannot protect them from their own reality by sacrificing yours. When you let go of the need to be their savior, you give them the dignity of walking their own path, and you give yourself the permission to rest. Imagine a beautiful bird that has lived its entire life inside a small, ornate cage in the center of a busy house. For years, it has lived for the people walking by. When it sings a cheerful song, they stop and smile. When it jumps energetically from perch to perch, they applaud. The bird has learned that its entire worth comes from keeping the room entertained and making the people outside the bars feel good. One morning, the door to the cage is left wide open. The boundless, quiet sky is waiting just outside the window. But the bird does not leave. It looks at the open door, and then it looks back at the room. It is completely terrified of the open sky, because the sky does not applaud. The sky does not demand a song. The sky simply offers freedom. The bird stays inside the cage because it has decided it would rather be confined and needed than free and unburdened. This is what you are doing when you refuse to step out of your role. You are staying inside an open cage. You take on the extra pressure at work because you crave the validation of being reliable. You swallow your hurt in a relationship because you want the comfort of keeping the peace. You exhaust yourself trying to be everything to everyone because you are terrified of what happens when the applause stops. You are choosing the exhaustion of the cage over the vast, quiet peace of your own life. Ask yourself, whose expectations are keeping you inside the cage? Think about your own life. Are you holding on to this heavy role because it is who you truly are, or because you are afraid they will not know what to do with you? If you stop performing, pause. Breathe. Notice the fear of disappointing someone rising in your chest. Let it rise and observe it without letting it control you. You are not responsible for how they react to your truth. Do your part, then release the outcome. You do not have to be the perfect character in someone else's story at the expense of your own peace, because true love is never found by pretending to be what someone else needs. It is found when you finally step out of the cage and let the world meet you exactly as you are. But once you step out, you must discover what true rest feels like. And this is where the final truth begins. 9. Finding rest in true belonging. What if the peace you have been searching for all this time is hiding exactly where you are most afraid to look? At the beginning of this journey, we talked about the profound exhaustion of always being strong. We talked about the heavy iron suit you put on to survive, and the silent, suffocating loneliness of standing in a crowded room where everyone relies on you, but no one knows your heart. You have spent your life believing that belonging is a reward for being useful. You thought that if you were the rock, the constant caretaker, and the unbroken survivor, you would finally earn a safe place in the lives of the people you love. But you cannot earn true belonging. You can only allow it. When you drop the armor, you do not become weak, you become real. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that peace is our natural state. It is not a fortress we have to furiously defend, nor a performance we have to rigidly maintain. It is the quiet stillness that remains when we stop fighting reality, when we let go of our deep attachments to our protective identities. We realize that we are already worthy of love, simply because we are here. Think of a river finally reaching the edge of the ocean. For miles, it has rushed over jagged rocks. It has aggressively carved through deep, narrow valleys and carried the heavy debris of the mountains on its back. It has been a powerful, relentless force. But when it finally meets the sea, it stops pushing. It does not need to carry the heavy stones from the mountain all the way into the depths. It simply releases its current into the vast, calm water. The river finds its ultimate belonging not by fighting, not by forcing its way, and not by holding tight, but by letting go entirely. This is what true rest feels like. You can let the heavy stones go now. You do not need to manage the storm for everyone else. You do not need to exhaust yourself trying to force physical proximity, hoping that if you just stand close enough to people, the loneliness will finally disappear. Connection is not found in distance or in perfect attendance. It is found in truth. When you finally unlock the door to that quiet room, when you show up with gentle, unashamed honesty, the right people will not run from your vulnerability. They will not be frightened by your exhaustion. They will pull up a chair, light a candle, and sit with you in the quiet light. Ask yourself, right now, in this moment, are you ready to stop merely surviving and start simply living? Pause, breathe. Notice the space you have created in your own mind just by listening to these truths. The world will keep spinning even if you stop pushing it. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to be entirely, beautifully human. If these lessons touched your heart, share this video with someone who may need a little more peace today. You can put the armor down now